You know, after church hurt, some of us, maybe not all, but some of us really want to move forward, to take that step back into the sanctuary, to take that step back into the community where at some point it felt safe and now it doesn't. And the thought of taking that risk is scary because your heart whispers, I don't know if I can trust again. Your heart wonders, will this place ever be a sanctuary again? Will these people be safe? There's a woman in the Bible who can relate, and her name is Hannah. She knew what it was like to experience hurt in the church and hurt from God's people. And she took a risk to trust. And I can't wait to tell you all about her story because we can learn from her how to handle when trust is scary after church hurt. Hi, I'm Donna Scott. I am a speaker, author of The Tapestry of Trauma and Success in His Eyes. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and life coach, and it is my desire to serve you, equip you, and empower you on your healing journey as God's daughter or God's son. And this month, we're talking about a very difficult subject of when church breaks your heart. And I can't believe we're almost done. But we talked about how we need to separate God from the tangle of his people last week. And this week, it's like, okay, I can start to see God a little bit, but the thought of going back into the situation that hurt me feels too scary. How do you handle or begin the church healing process when trust feels scary? Well, number one, you have to give yourself permission to understand that trust will feel risky. When we look in the first chapter of Samuel, I'm only going to hit a few verses. I highly recommend you read all of chapter 1 and all of chapter 2 to get an understanding of Hannah. For those who may not know, Hannah was a wife, one of two wives, to a man named Elkanah. And when Samuel opens up, it talks about how they would take the annual trip to Jerusalem. So it wasn't like a neighborhood church. They went to the temple to worship. And the problem with that was every time they would go and all the community would come together, Hannah, whom was infertile. And we read in the verse how God had closed her womb. Now, infertility is a painful, painful topic to women in our generation. And can I just say that my heart hurts? And it hurts for a couple of reasons. One, the longing. I liked how somebody said involuntary infertility, because now in this season people choose not to have kids. But when you're longing for a child and you can't have one, and all the messages that come at you, like, and what women tell me is it's a sense of what's wrong with me. like they have control over their body, and people in their desire to help actually create more wounds for that woman. So if you know someone who's struggling, pray for them and listen. Even if you can relate on some level, and God is leading you to share quickly, but listen more. Because that woman needs a safe place to be vulnerable and share. And that's where Hannah was. Hannah, and culturally, now if I go back to the culture, definitely there was shame. There was, what's wrong with you? Men could divorce their wives because their lineage wouldn't continue if they had the wife. They didn't have all the knowledge that it takes two. There's various reasons for that. So the woman had this shame. Hannah's other wound was Elkanah had a second wife, and her name was Peninnah. Peninnah had sons and daughters. We don't know how many, but she had plenty. And every time they would go to church, Peninnah would take that as an opportunity to ridicule Hannah, to pick on her, to irritate her, to aggravate her, and to brag. So can you imagine that you are going to church to worship, and it's a big event? It's like we get to be with God, we get to offer sacrifices, literal sacrifices, and the sacrifice of praise. But every year, the scripture says year after year after year, Hannah remained infertile. And year after year after year, Peninnah kept taking the opportunity to torture her. And this one year, and honestly, I don't know how Hannah kept going back. I don't. That's what I admire about her. So she was hurt. Peninnah was a sister wife. So now she's experiencing family hurt from a fellow believer who was a part of her family. We read in that chapter how Elkanah, Hannah's husband, and Peninnah's husband, he loved Hannah. So he would show his love for her by giving her a double portion of the meal. So I don't want to go into too many details, but anyway, whatever was given to Peninnah and her kids, Elkanah, to show his love for Hannah, would double it. And yet he came across her crying after being tortured by Peninnah. And he, in his desire to help her, it's like, why are you crying? Isn't my love for you worth more than 10 sons? It's like, on one hand, you're supporting me, and on the other hand, in your desire to help me, you wound me even more. This is what she's dealing with. And after this particular meal, because she couldn't eat, she was so depressed. She wasn't eating. That's why he was trying to get her to eat. She gets up and goes to the temple. And in 1 Samuel 13 through 14, she takes the risk to go in and walks into more church hurt. 1 Samuel 13, 14, I'm going to actually start with 10, because what I love about this is Hannah went to the church and took her pain to the Lord. We talked about that earlier. Share your pain. Be transparent about your hurt to the Lord. And that's what she did. And she was in bitterness of soul and prayed to the Lord and wept in anguish as she prayed. O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a male child. She asked specifically. Then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall come upon him. Now we're getting to the church hurt. And it happened as she continued praying before the Lord that Eli, who was the priest, or what we would call pastor, watched her mouth. Now Hannah spoke in her heart, and only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore, Eli thought she was drunk. Now, can we talk about how assumptions get you in trouble? It flabbergasts me to know, okay, she's in the church. How is it you automatically think she's drunk versus she's praying to God? That just blew me away. So with this faulty belief, Eli says, therefore he thought she was drunk. So Eli said to her, how long will you be drunk? Put your wine away from you. She took the risk to trust and go into God's house and was met by the pastor, the priest, who instead of offering comfort, offered an accusation and judgment. When you take the risk and you get hurt again, that's scary. But we learn from Hannah that when trust is scary, to allow God to rebuild the trust and build the confidence in you. Now, she's already shared her pain with God. Now, listen to her response to Eli. In verse 15, but Hannah answered and said, no, my Lord. I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor intoxicating drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord. Do not consider your maidservant a wicked woman, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief I have spoken until now. She allowed God to give her the words to take a stand with the spiritual leader. She didn't stay silent, and she could have. She could have cowered in the shame and hurt of yet again being mistreated. But she shared her truth gently and respectfully. If God is leading you to have that kind of conversation with the person who's wounding you, allow him to give you the time, the timing, the words, and for him to prepare your heart and ask him to prepare the listener's heart. She didn't do all that. I'm just throwing that in for free. If God is leading you to do that. And then I was just amazed by her courage. Because even in her woundedness, she shares even more pain. But she corrects his assumption. And that's where the third point happens. Trust is scary after church hurt until you get a safe spiritual connection. Because she took the risk to go back, because she poured her heart out to God, because when she was wounded again, she spoke truth, her risk paid off. Because here's Eli's response. Then Eli answered and said, go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition, which you have asked of him. Do I wish he had said, I am so sorry I got that wrong? Maybe he did. It's not recorded. Instead of condemnation and judgment, this spiritual leader heard her words and offered a blessing and offered a prayer on her behalf. A sentence prayer, may God grant you. So now she's not praying alone. The spiritual leader who judged her and accused her, when truth, was able to shepherd like he was supposed to in the first place. What if she hadn't taken the risk? What if she had just walked away? God empowered her. He equipped her. And even though her fear came true and she got wounded again, this time God gave her the words, and he gave the priest a listening ear. That connection and healing in that moment was able to happen. Here's her response to what Eli says in verse 18. And she said, let your maidservant find favor in your sight. So the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. Get this. The healing happened in the sanctuary. She didn't come away pregnant, but she came away heard and helped. And she was able to go back and eat. And yes, God heard her prayer. Yes, he blessed her with a child. And yes, after she weaned the child, she brought him back. She honored her vow. And her husband agreed, because he could have stopped it. But he agreed, and they gave their son, Samuel, to the priest Eli. That's not how the story ends. I think in the second or third chapter, second chapter is full of her praise to God, which I highly recommend you read. Later on, we learn that God blessed her with 5 more children. Trust after church hurt is very scary. Build your confidence in the one who wants to heal you, the one who wants to help you. Here's the thing. Hannah had cracks in her spirit. Cracks. Painful cracks. Each wound would rip her heart. And year after year, that pattern kept continuing. And as she poured her heart out to God, the one who could fill these cracks, God took something strong enough to heal those cracks. Healing, hearing, comfort, support, empowerment. And I've shared this bowl, I keep it in my office, that with kintsugi art, they take something stronger than the cracks. They take gold. And they use gold to put the broken pieces back together. And that's what God does with our trust. Because when our hearts are cracked, it's hard to trust again. And we need God to imbue us with his strength, with his comfort, the gold strength of that, to put us back together so the healing can happen after church hurt. So my challenge to you today is, name one place where trust feels risky. Name it. Share it with God. And if there is someone saved, share it with them so they can pray with you. Then again, pray honestly to God. She didn't jump into the, I trust you, Lord. what we call the Christianese. She was like, I am anguished. I am sorrowful. This hurts. I challenge you to take your pain and pray as honestly as Hannah did. And if you don't have the words, pray her words. Because God is longing to hear. He knows. He knows you need to share that with him. And as Hannah did when she went back to the house of God, she didn't go for the people. She went straight to the Lord and talked to him there. Don't try to do all three. Just pick one, whichever way the Lord leads you. And allow him to heal the cracks of your heart that was put there by church hurt. If you found this helpful, or you know someone else who can benefit from this, please feel free to share this video. Next week we're going to conclude with When Church Breaks Your Heart. And I'm going to have a gift for you, prayerfully. Okay? And next week I really want to talk about, too, is it safe to go back? Or what can make it safe? Or is God leading you somewhere else? So we'll tune in for our conclusion for When Church Breaks Your Heart. Thank you so much for watching. See you next week. Bye-bye.